Hello, I'm your facilitator today, Angelique Hamilton, and we'll cover the topic A Roadmap for Leaders to Survive in a World of Disruption. With no playbook for how best to respond to the rapidly evolving concerns around COVID 19, many decision makers are grappling to strike the right balance between prudent cautiousness and panicked overreaction. With so many unknowns, playing it extra safe is arguably a sensible response. Yet, playing it too safe comes with its own risk. Navigating that uncertainty of the path ahead in ways that minimize the ongoing fallout but will require who occupy leadership roles to keep fear in check and rethink that risk beyond its usual parameters. How to survive and thrive in a world of disruption. We will discuss the following topics in this webinar: how to lead effectively, create a vision, navigating in a world of disruption. After this webinar, you should be able to explain preparing your company for what's to come, identifying early indicators, and lastly, balancing innovation portfolios. As we watch the unfolding updates of the coronavirus, we're reminded of the turmoil, fear, and stress that comes from that uncertainty and the damage that it can cause on morale and productivity. How can companies steer themselves through the rough seas of disruption toward the calmer water? While the safety and well being of workers affected by COVID 19 is the first priority, companies will also triage other essentials, such as incident management and stakeholder communications. In response to COVID 19, companies are developing their contingency plans very quickly. Some are adapting existing plans to handle this outbreak, while others are starting from scratch. Now, there are several business steps that you can take to help improve the situation. We'll go through them one by one on the next slides. And they are: create a dedicated crisis team, watch for those early indicators, collaborate internally and externally, a chance for businesses to adapt and renew, and lastly, honesty and transparency. A crisis like COVID 19 can have an impact on every part of the business. Senior level oversight and internal cohesion among cross functional teams, grounded in preparation, training, and testing, are key to good outcomes. Every member of the team, from executive leadership down, should know who is doing what. And if you haven't already, train the people involved in executing the plan to be sure they're ready at a moment's notice. The following aspects are vital to creating a crisis management team. One, develop a cross-functional team. The scope of this team does include executive leadership from operations, finance, legal, communications, human resources, and technology. Two, call upon third-party experts. Use technical, legal, public relations, and insurance experts during a major crisis to provide unbiased perspectives. Three, identify key law enforcement and regulatory contacts. Establish these contacts before a crisis occurs to help those things go smoothly when responding to a disaster. COVID 19 is forcing many teams into crisis mode as they rush to meet customer and employee needs in our newly socially distanced reality. Organizations with experienced crisis management teams are urgently adding capacity and adapting to distributed working models. And those who haven't built a crisis management response team are grappling with how to rapidly train employees and get the access to the right tools. While it's nearly impossible to predict disruptions, those who keep a careful watch often can pick up on early signs. For example, companies that noticed the first movements of consumers toward online shopping were better positioned to navigate those disruptions than companies that weren't paying as close attention. The COVID 19 pandemic has turned businesses around the world upside down, We are all focused on firefighting, on surviving, on managing unforeseen circumstances that weren't a part of anyone's strategic goal. At a time like this, why would anyone make time for thinking strategically? To not just survive, but also succeed, you and your organization need to understand how your industry will shift in the coming months and start planning your next steps now. So you can't afford not to plan strategically and look for early market indicators to guide you and your team. To exercise your strategic thinking muscles, first lift your head up from the day to day and get to know the big picture. This doesn't just mean familiarizing yourself with your organization's long term strategic goals. You also want to develop an overall sense of what's going on in the world, in your industry, and in your markets. Keep your eyes open for emerging trends and make sure your team is on the lookout for that as well. This means that you'll need to take a little time away from the normal responsibilities. Trust me, it will be worth it. And after you begin to tap into those relevant trends, don't stop there. Question your assumptions about how your industry and the markets operate. After surfacing industry trends and questioning everyday assumptions, use those insights to identify opportunities you and your team can take advantage of. There's no time like the present for thinking about the future. The COVID-19 pandemic will impact every global industry in some way or another. Let's get specific. Think about the opportunities that are opening up from work from home technology companies. Their strategy may have been focused on road warriors, on the minority of those working from home full time, and those enjoying occasional work from home perks. With so many employees now operating in a fully virtual environment, are there new markets opening up? New products and services that can be provided? Three key participants are at the heart of any crisis response. Public relations and communication teams. They're responsible for developing and delivering the organization's messaging internally and externally. Legal and regulatory teams. Their role is to understand the organization's risk exposures and advise on appropriate responses. Operational response teams. They essentially handle everything else, including establishing the facts that the other two groups need to do their jobs. Achieving the close orchestration needed between the communications, legal, and operational teams is not always easy, partly because they're often used to working in separate silos. Create a small core committee drawn from across them, empowered to make tactical decisions and escalate important issues to board level. This approach creates the orchestration that's the secret sauce for an effective crisis response. However, working from home has caused many challenges to collaborate across teams, such as difficulty in keeping the morale up, keeping interactions with colleagues, and etc. To keep their productivity level going, the employees need to come together online and work with collaborative tools like Zoom. And what else can you do? You can use video chat functions, collaborations tools to keep those people engaged, and you can build a company remotely, for example, host remote virtual office parties and happy hours. No one fully foresaw the extent of the COVID-19 crisis. Businesses have been disrupted and will not necessarily go back to normal. Instead, the current disruption has changed and continues to change the business landscape as we know it. How can business leaders react to those challenges, reassess what they do, reconfigure their companies, and reinvent their activities to adapt to the disruption and prepare for the new normal? The implications of climate change, new technologies, digitalization, demographic changes, artificial intelligence, financial and political uncertainties have moved many of us. We saw a significant event coming, but the pandemic has likely taken it at least one level up from our expectations. If companies haven't been online before, they are likely online now. And a fast changing marketplace, aggressively pushing new solutions into the market may help some companies. It's critical that companies continuously move in a right direction as the pandemic shutdowns continue. Businesses that have change ingrained in their culture are likely to do better in uncertain times. Over the long term, finding and pursuing new opportunities will drive change. Companies may now serve new, different customers. They may now need to get out of their comfort zone and learn new skills to adapt to change. The question is not if your organization will experience uncertain times. The question is when. In order to be successful during times of uncertainty, your organization must be patient and it must be consistent. A sound employee communication strategy plays an integral role in supporting the everyday needs of the workers, especially in a time of crisis. When a crisis first hit, companies need to react to immediate challenges and threats. At that point, it's important not to lose sight of doing the right thing. Businesses must remain true to their vision, be empathetic to stakeholders, and make quick decisions and adjust to those decisions, if necessary, frequently and transparently, on the basis of new information in order to quickly adapt. In volatile and uncertain times, such as this, it's critical for organizations to be open and honest in their communications. Transparency is key when a situation is evolving, and clearly explaining how you're prepared for and are addressing such an event will help put your people at ease and avoid the need for damage control later. Preparing people for a potential crisis can be a challenge, but communicating best practices and information shouldn't be. To maximize that impact, communicate with workers on their channel and preference, mobile, email, etc. Taking an omni-channel approach will ensure employees are seeing communications no matter their location or current work situation. To facilitate real, honest, and supportive communications with every employee can be difficult. Organizations can make it easier by equipping managers at every level with the messaging and resources they need. Prepared and well-versed managers can better handle tough conversations and make employees feel supported and heard throughout the process. Tensions run high during a crisis, but keeping a level head and maintaining a human element in communications will help organizations in the long run. Remember, the goal of a crisis communication is to calm nerves, share valuable and, and also relevant information, provide resources that empower employees to make informed decisions about their health and their safety. As COVID-19 continues to spread, employers should monitor and adjust their plans as necessary to keep pace with employees and businesses' needs. As history proves, it's also necessary to prepare for what's next. Visionary leaders like Abraham Lincoln and Nelson Mandela didn't simply react to the most imminent threats confronting them. They also looked beyond the dark horizon. They were guided and guided their people in turn by their vision for a better future, and those challenges had been overcome. Of course, nobody has a crystal ball. Even Steve Jobs didn't. If such a thing existed, we wouldn't be in this fix. But while you can't predict what's coming with perfect certainty, you can develop much more clarity than you might imagine about what you could and should become. Create a plan to live into it and then set it into motion. Remember to spend time envisioning your future, develop a strategy to walk back your envisioned future to today, be prepared to learn and pivot. Rally your team around your vision. You may feel that you simply can't afford to carve out that time that it takes to set a vision and build a strategic path to it. But the leaders who manage the day-to-day and lead with vision will emerge from the crises with companies that are stronger and more resilient than they were ever before. One thing is certain, companies need to be disruption ready to survive. So they need leaders who are disruption fit. So what do they look like? Top-notch sensors. They're experts at scanning. They know that observing the competitive landscape is by no means enough. Because everything is interrelated, they sense three layers simultaneously: system, people, and self. Masters at creating informed accelerations. A temptation for today's leader is to impose speed everywhere all the time. This is a bad idea. It creates confusion and exhaustion. Because they are top-notch sensors, disruption-fit leaders know where and when to apply accelerations to create strategic impact. Obsessed about seeking new openings whenever the context alters. Seeing disruption as a source for opportunity and making it a mindset establishes a balance between negative and positive. Fighting threats with preventative or mitigation actions is still necessary, but using that same sense of urgency to look for new openings leads to innovative breakthroughs. This is a leader who constantly questions what is happening around them and is both agile and people centric enough to do something about it. For leaders to succeed in a disruptive environment, they need to learn to put context at the center of their professional armory. Disruption fit leaders cannot win alone, so they still need a huge task ahead: creating a disruption fit organization. In this webinar, you've learned more about how and why organizations should put in place a crisis management plan. You've learned how to leverage cross-functional teams, document communication and management processes, and put in place backup communication channels. As we embrace the unknown, it is clear that leadership accountability will become more important than ever. In fact, it has become a crucial element for future-proofing organizations in times of crises for drastic change. Perhaps more importantly, it is necessary for encouraging teams to emerge more connected and resilient than ever before. Connect with AIES on social media on LinkedIn and Facebook at American Institute of Extended Studies.